I've been going to Georgia since 1988. So go back to the days of Gorbachev and Glasnost and Perestroika and all that stuff. And I first tasted my first Kavshiri orange wine then, and I thought it was disgusting. I don't know in retrospect if it was disgusting. All the people with me thought it was disgusting. I've tasted enough disgusting wines in Georgia to think it probably was. But it came out of a hole in the ground, and it was new. I then done some consultancy for wines of Georgia as a region, and I've kept going back, and I've been fascinated by all of the different grapes they've got, the history of the Kavshiri amphora, and so on. I've also been fascinated by the reverence that some people in the wine industry have gone, suddenly Georgia is the new god of wine, and all the naturalistas have embraced Georgia. By the way, any naturalistas in the room, I can tell you there's an awful lot of Georgian wine that is A, made with cultured yeast, B, filtered, and it's very well made. But the fact that Georgian winemakers get a free pass to every natural wine event makes some of my Georgian friends laugh. So put that to one side. Also, some of the Georgian grapes are fascinating. They've almost all got unpronounceable names. And actually, when you taste them by themselves, when they're made in stainless steel, which, by the way, most Georgian wine is, the Kavshiris are about 4.5%, so just a tiny little bit. Most Georgian wine that's exported, by the way, is sweet red wine that goes to Russia and Poland. So not all the romantic stuff that we all hear about. But some of those grapes are not that exciting. Rkatsiteli, which is the most widely planted grape, to me is the equivalent of Trebbiano. There's some delicious Trebbiano. There's some downstairs, I think. But most Trebbiano is pretty ordinary, let's be honest. And Rkatsiteli is German. The Russians liked, or the Soviets liked Trebbiano, liked Rkatsiteli because it was productive and easy. The red grape, Saperavi, fascinating, black juiced, intense, and so on. A lot of people are treating it again like the second coming. How many great Saperavis have I had? How many Saperavis have I had that really compete with a great Brunello, a great Bordeaux, a great Burgundy? It's doing something different, but the tannins can be a little bit too prominent. You've got black-skinned grape, you've got the skins, you've got everything else. So I approached these wines, it goes back to the fact that I met a brilliant young winemaker. I've got a brilliant winemaker partner on the wines you've seen here, Hugh Ryman, who's one of the first flying winemakers. He started making wine all over the world aged 20, 21. Here I met this winemaker called Vladimir Kavshiri, who's 40-something years old, and now doing his diploma, wants to be Master of Wine, absolutely driven, passionate about wine, but totally open-minded. And I met him a few times, and then one day I was at a Provine, and he gave me a red wine, and he said, "So, what do you think of this?" And I'd never had anything. It was really wonderful. And I said, "It's brilliant. What's the great Aladasturi? What's that?" And he said, "Well, there's only about 60 hectares of it in the world. And I think it's quite interesting." I said, "Yes, great." He said, "Yeah, but it's not easy." He says, "What I did with these is I took the grapes and I hung them to dry for 10 days. Why? He said, "Well, it's a region of Georgia where it gets pretty humid, and the grapes don't get ripe, and by the time they're getting ripe, the danger is they get rotten. So I pick them when they're as ripe as I can get them, and I'm just letting them dry for 10 days, which gives me about an extra degree, but it concentrates and so on." I thought, this is it. I really like you. You're my kind of winemaker. That wasn't a tradition in Georgia. He was taking Italian thinking. So we started to talk about making wine. That was 2019. COVID got in the way. But it took about 5 years, really, to last year, really, to get it together. So what you've got here, whether you like it or you don't like it, and I do want to hear what you think, is a total. When we started this project, we said, right, all bets are off. He makes Kavshiri wine, he makes stainless steel wine, he's got some wine that goes into barrels, the owners of the winery have 1,600 hectares of vines across Georgia. So we were able to play with a wonderful palette. One of the best conversations I've had in wine, some of them have been the conversation I had with the Krugs over how they put together Krug, and some of the unfashionable vineyards they use and grapes for Krug. But by the same token, John Duval, when he was making Grange for Penfolds, was talking about this extraordinary palette and every year of how do you make Grange. So we started like that with no fixed idea of what we were going to do. There was probably going to be Ricazzatelli in there. There was probably going to be Kavshiri in there, but we didn't know. Was it going to be 90% Kavshiri, 10% Kavshiri? And we worked back and forth and back and forth. And in the end, you end up with like 13 different grapes, 11% Kavshiri. But by the way, every year will be different. Also, every time we do it will be different. And of the grapes, which we've got the white to start with, all Georgian grapes, except for 2. Now, this is a fascinating moment, and there's somebody downstairs with a wine that may fit into this picture, I don't know. But Vladimir, actually, he's a lovely guy, very gentle, quite very, very quiet sometimes. And he said, and we're blending, and he goes, we both think we're not there yet. Can we put some aligote in here? I go, why? Well, he's got 5 hectares of aligote planted, it's now growing. Yeah, okay. I lived in Burgundy. I have a low impression of aligote, let's be honest about this. I know you can pay $300 for a bottle of Le Roi aligote these days, but in goes 1%, 2%, 3%. Actually, 5% aligote in the blend. Wow. This is good. Okay, aligote is in. More blends, and then, right, okay, we think we're there. I said, okay, lardo, which is what they, Vladimir in Georgian. I said, okay, can we just take the aligote out now? Because, let's just see what happens with aligote. So we always say the aligote fought its way into the blend and held itself there. There's 1.7% of muscat. Everything else is Ricazzatelli, Mtsvani, Krachuna. On the back label, all of those. These come from across the east and west of Georgia. Well, is it from Kakheti on the east, Imereti on the west. Very different. The west is more humid than the east, and so on. And as I said, 11% Kavshiri, but also some grapes skin contacted in stainless steel, and then some wine in barrel. So really using all of those, blending, and mixing vintages. So going back to 2017. Why are you mixing vintages? Well, why shouldn't we? If they can do it for Krug, why can't we do it? If they can do it for Vega Sicilia, why can't we do it? But why in the wine industry is it only Vega Sicilia, 1 or 2 others, and Champagne that does multi-vintage? So we don't call it multi-vintage, we don't call it non-vintage, we call it assemblage.
I'm just curious to know if it's certain grapes that are older or you make the blend?
We make the blend. Basically we have different wines, so literally we are putting together, it might be some Ricazzatelli from 2017, or it might be some Krachuna from 2018. They're just all components. They just go into them. To me, I love winemakers. Of course I love winemakers. That's my whole life I've worked with winemakers. But by the way, I love wine buyers. I love sommeliers. But you know what I also love? I love chefs. I love mixologists. There's somebody in a restaurant over there today who is making a dish that has never been made before. He is putting, or she is putting, flavors from Indonesia with flavors from France and Italy and whatever, and they're making something that we are going to go and enjoy. Who is doing that in wine? How many people in wine are doing what their father did, or what the marketing people are saying they should do? So if actually blending vintages works, why not do it? However, we are a dishonest, hypocritical industry. We didn't want to put ingredient listing on our wine because we are better than that. Food does that. We did. Oh, it's healthy, it's this, it's that. Okay. Now, this bottle of wine, here's my Cabernet Sauvignon from Della. Is it really Cabernet Sauvignon? Yeah, of course it is. Does it have anything else in it? Oh, 15%. Where does it say that? Well, I don't say that. The law says I can put Cabernet Sauvignon with 85%, 50%, unless, of course, I'm somewhere I can do 75%. Or unless I'm someplace I can do 50% in America, I can say American wine or whatever. That's crazy. People are buying 2023 Cabernet Sauvignon, they are getting 1 glass in that bottle, nearly 1 glass in that bottle. It may not be 2023 Cabernet Sauvignon, and we think that's okay. I don't think it's okay. So on the wines that we do in Le Grand Noir, yeah, we say Chardonnay on the front label, but on the back it says Chardonnay Viognier. And we actually say what we've got. In this, it's a blend of vintages and grapes. We say what the vintages are of each grape and where they come from. So that's the white. So what I want the white to do is to have some Kavshiri character. I hope you can tell me whether you can get it or not, but I want it to be Georgian. I don't want it to be an international, non-whatever wine. The red has slightly fewer grapes. It's only got 9 different grapes. This is again back to the why not story. This is unique. They're both unique in terms of the blend of vintages and so on. What's unusual here, we co-fermented the Saperavi with Riccazzatelli and Lazzani. Why did you do that? Okay, guys, let's go and see Mr. Gigal, shall we? Mr. Gigal, why do you co-ferment your Côte Rôtie? Because it's what you do, it makes very good wine. Actually, Mr. Dupont, your Hermitage, why do you not co-ferment an Hermitage? Well, we don't, because we don't. They used to co-ferment Chianti. They used to co-ferment Rioja. It used to be common in lots of places. Now, it was often done because the wines were too tough, okay. And a lot of places make very good wine without doing it. But that's not to say that it was wrong. And lots of us say, oh, isn't it great, tradition? We love tradition, except that we don't. We only have these little islands of tradition like Côte Rôtie. So Saperavi, to me, can make quite rustic wines. How do you actually prevent a wine making rustic, or grape making rustic wines? Well, how about co-fermenting it? We did 5 different blends in our first test, and in fact, I rang, I WhatsApped Vladimir and said, look, you're busy, you're dealing with 1,600 hectares of vines. If you're too busy, let's not do 5. The one I believe in is Kisi, which is a great grape, one of the interesting grapes in Georgia. Let's focus on the Kisi and maybe Quacuna, which is another grape I like a lot. And let's not bother with the Riccazzatelli, which I think I've told you is a little bit Trebbiano-like. Let's just do 2. And he comes back and says, no, I'll do 5. I go there, we do a blind tasting 2 or 3 times. The 2 winners are Riccazzatelli and Lazzani, and the absolute loser is Kisi. So my instinct of what would work was completely wrong. Now maybe next year we might try it a different way, and it might work differently or whatever. So what you've got here is that co-ferment, or 2 co-ferments. You've got other grapes that you may or may not have come across in Georgia, which include the air-dried grapes. Other grapes that we actually pick off by hand because you get hens and chickens, you get little grapes. And so a huge amount of work has gone into that. And there's only foreign grape in there is 5% Merlot. Merlot, not my favorite grape, by the way. And again, it just fitted into the wine. And tomorrow, Heidi's going to taste our first rosé, which we made 1,000 bottles. And again, we're broken various rules of that. You like these wines, you don't like these wines. They are an expression of what Vladimir and I have been trying to do. And if I do nothing else, I hope that a few people are going to look at what we've done here and say, hey, well, we could try this, we could try something else, we could try something different.
Wrap up, so...
Can we just do you have enough time for a few questions, please? Or comments? So, listen, my background as a critic was saying what I did and didn't like, and actually sometimes I did tell winemakers what I didn't like to their faces. So firstly, I am not going to be bruised on any comments you have that are negative about any of these wines. I'd also be interested to hear, obviously, about any positive thoughts you have, and also any questions or comments, until Heidi tells us we have to leave. So, please.
Do we already have some of your wines in the restaurants here in Finland?
No, these ones are not available in Finland, mostly because we're still arguing about the price.
I think you were talking about the Georgian wines or the French wines.
Yeah, sorry, the Georgian ones are not here. So the Grand Noir, the Green Planets, they are available through Viinitie, obviously, and you can taste a broader range downstairs. Yeah.
And approximately
Georgian wines, we're not there yet. You can tell me what you would pay.
The French wine prices are in the book.
Yeah,
That's the worst.
So I'm going to come back to price in a moment, but keep going. And other comments. I mean, actually, do you like them? And that's really the question. Do they stand on a table? At what level do they stand on a table? That's really where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I really like it because they're a little bit, like you said, unique. Other kind of wines that you don't normally drink.
Yeah, drinking is probably.
I work in a small wine bar, and I have the last like 2 months people asking about the Jordan wines. Can you take in Jordan wines? Can you get where will you get them? which importer have Jordan?
What I want this to be is an entry, not entry level, because that suggests price, but an entry to Georgian wines, in as much as this is less of a challenge than a Kavshiri orange wine. And in terms of price, what I want to do is, what's interesting to me, if you look at the labels of the bottles, the third wine in, the Chardonnay, it's Le Grand Noir Chardonnay. You know what you're buying. You may not know whether it's oaky or not oaky or whatever. You know Chardonnay. The Georgian wines are impenetrable. That's deliberate because they can't be penetrable. They're Georgian grapes and so on. However, the back label does explain something. I am going to rely on people like you, sommeliers, and other people to do the selling. And I think we, as producers, and that's going to be part of the picture of who's going to survive, we are going to have to work harder with our distributor to make that work. So if that means coming to you and saying, hey, you can actually serve some by the glass, you can do some sampling, you can give people a little bit of a taste, so to find out whether they like it or not, that's, I think, what we need to do. But we need to do that as an industry. We need to say, here's a wine from Mallorca. You don't know what Mallorca is like. Do you like this? Do you not like it? We can't expect people to give us 15, 16, 20, 30 euros for a bottle of liquid that they've got no idea what it tastes like, and take it home and maybe have a bad time. We need to be much better at saying you've had a tiny little bit of some Mallorcan wine, you've fallen in love with it, you haven't fallen in love.